She looked me dead in the eyes and smiled. Not a warm smile, a victory smile. "We already got married yesterday," she said. "Sorry you missed it." I was standing in my own backyard, the same backyard where I pushed my son on a swing when he was 4 years old, the same backyard where I buried his first dog, the same yard I mowed every Saturday for 31 years, and I wasn't invited to my own son's wedding. I didn't yell, I just stood there, still as a fence post. My son, Daniel, stood behind her. He didn't look at me, he stared at the grass. That told me everything. The guests laughed at something she said next. I didn't hear the words, I just heard the laughter bouncing off my fence. I turned around, walked inside, sat at my kitchen table, and I made a decision that changed everything. What they didn't know was I had already seen this coming. If this story feels familiar, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll want to see how this ends. My name is Gerald. I'm 64 years old. I live in Sarasota, Florida. I worked 32 years as a building contractor, built homes for other families, raised one son on my own after his mother passed, pancreatic cancer. Daniel was 11. It was just us two after that. I gave that boy everything. Good school, baseball cleats every season, a truck when he turned 18, a down payment on his first apartment at 25. I wasn't a perfect father, but I showed up every single time. Then he met Vanessa. She moved here from out of state. Sharp dresser, fast talker, always had an angle. The first time she came to Sunday dinner, she spent 20 minutes telling me how successful her father was. Never once asked me a single question about myself. I noticed, but I said nothing. Daniel was happy, so I kept my mouth shut. But then little things started disappearing. Sunday dinners became once a month, then once every 2 months. Daniel stopped answering my calls the same day. He started responding with short texts, 1 word, 2 words, busy, later, all good. I'm not a man who panics, I'm a man who watches. So I watched, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Because 6 weeks before that day in the backyard, I received a phone call that I was never supposed to receive. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting on my porch, drinking coffee, watching the pelicans over the water. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was a woman named Carol. She was the office manager at the county clerk's office downtown. She said, "Mr. Gerald, I'm calling because your name was listed as a reference on a marriage license application. I just wanted to confirm a few details." I went cold. A marriage license. Already filed. I hadn't been told. I hadn't been asked. Daniel had listed me as a reference, probably just to fill a box on a form, and never mentioned a single word to me. I kept my voice calm. I answered Carol's questions. I thanked her politely. Then I sat back down in my chair. Sadly, this wasn't the only time a family relationship changed after money entered the picture. I linked a similar story here if you'd like to watch it later. The coffee had gone cold. I looked out at the water for a long time. I thought about Daniel at 11 years old, crying in the hospital parking lot, asking me if Mama was really gone. I thought about us eating cereal for dinner because I didn't know how to cook, and we both pretended it was fine. I thought about every school play, every report card, every birthday. I thought about all of it. And then I made a quiet choice. Not a choice born from anger, a choice born from clarity. If they wanted to leave me out, I would let them, completely. I did not call Daniel. I did not confront Vanessa. I did not show up unannounced. Instead, I made an appointment with my attorney on a Friday morning, a man named Bill who I'd known for 20 years. Good man, straight shooter. I told him what happened. He listened without interrupting. Then I told him what I wanted to do. He leaned back in his chair and nodded slowly. "Gerald," he said, "that is the calmest, smartest thing I've heard in this office all year." We spent 2 hours going over paperwork. I had a will, of course. Every responsible man does. I had written it 7 years ago when I had a health scare. At that time, Daniel was the sole beneficiary of everything. The house, the retirement account, the investment property I owned over in Bradenton. All of it. I made Bill begin the process of revising it. I also made 2 phone calls that afternoon. The first was to my brother Ray in Tennessee. We hadn't spoken much in recent years. Life gets busy. But Ray is solid. He has 2 grown kids who actually call him on weekdays just to say hello. The second call was to my financial advisor, a woman named Patricia, who had managed my accounts for 12 years. I told Patricia I wanted to restructure certain things, move some assets, set up a charitable remainder trust with a local foundation I had supported for years, a veterans housing nonprofit right here in Sarasota County. Patricia asked me if everything was all right. I said, everything is fine, I'm just getting organized. She didn't push further. Meanwhile, Daniel and Vanessa were living their new married life, going to brunch, posting photos, acting like the world was a beautiful, easy place. I watched from a distance. No bitterness, just observation. Then 3 weeks after the backyard moment, my phone buzzed. It was Daniel. "Hey, Dad, can we talk sometime?" I replied, "Sure, anytime." He never followed up. Was this intentional? Was he waiting for me to chase him? I started to wonder, was any of this actually Daniel's decision, or was something else going on? Here's what I want to ask you. If someone excludes you from the biggest day of their life and then comes asking for money weeks later, what would you do? Subscribe and drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. 6 weeks passed, then one Saturday morning, someone knocked on my front door. It was Vanessa, alone. She was dressed nicely, carrying a small gift bag. She smiled the same victory smile from the backyard. "Gerald," she said, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd love to come in and talk." I held the door open. I let her in. I offered her sweet tea. She accepted. She sat at my kitchen table and talked for 20 minutes. She apologized, sort of. She said the wedding was very small and private. She said she hoped there were no hard feelings. She said she and Daniel wanted to stay connected as a family. I nodded. I listened. I kept my face relaxed. Then she said the real reason she came. "We've been looking at a bigger place. Property prices here in Sarasota are tough right now. Daniel mentioned that you might be open to helping us get started. We're thinking maybe a loan, or if you wanted to co-sign something." I set my tea glass down slowly. "Vanessa," I said, "I appreciate you coming over. I really do." She leaned forward slightly, sensing a yes. "But I've recently restructured my finances. Everything is in trust now. It's tied up for the long term. I'm not in a position to make any large gifts or co-sign anything." Her smile didn't disappear, it just froze. "Oh," she said, "that's recent." "Yes," I said. "I got organized a while back. Best decision I ever made." She left 20 minutes later. The gift bag stayed on my counter. Inside was a scented candle, vanilla. I gave it to my neighbor Margaret the next morning. I've shared another story here that started with a small moment like this and ended very differently. 2 months after Vanessa's visit, Daniel finally came to see me. He sat in the same chair she had sat in. He looked tired, thinner. He said, "Dad, I owe you an apology." I let him talk. He told me Vanessa had planned the entire wedding without telling me I wasn't invited until 2 days before. He said he was ashamed. He said he didn't know how to face me. He said she had convinced him that I never approved of her and that was her justification for everything. He looked at his hands while he talked. When he finished, the kitchen was very quiet. I said, "Daniel, do you remember what I told you when your mother died?" He looked up. "I told you," I said, "that the people who love you will stay, and the people who use you will leave when they run out of things to take." He was quiet for a long moment. "She left," he said, 2 weeks ago. I wasn't surprised, but I kept that to myself. Vanessa had filed for separation after learning that my estate was no longer structured the way she had assumed it was. Someone, I suspect her attorney, had done some research. They figured out quickly that the pot of gold she was expecting had been redirected. The investment property in Bradenton, the retirement distributions, the house itself, placed in a trust that Daniel could only access slowly over time, with conditions designed to protect him, not reward impatience. She had married my son for a financial cushion, and I had quietly removed it before she could ever sit down on it. That is the poetic part. She planned her whole strategy around an inheritance that was already gone. She never even knew the clock was running. Daniel moved back to Sarasota permanently 6 months later. We didn't pretend the last 2 years didn't happen. We talked about them honestly. It took time. It wasn't easy for either of us, but we had Sunday dinners again. The real kind. Slow, with bad jokes and decent food. Vanessa moved back up north. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was already seeing someone new. Someone older. Someone with real estate holdings. I felt no satisfaction in that. No joy. I just felt settled, because I hadn't tried to destroy her. I had simply protected what was mine, my dignity, my legacy, and my son. The betrayal cost me 2 years of peace, but it gave me clarity that I couldn't have bought at any price. I learned who showed up. I learned who stayed silent when they should have spoken. And I learned that quiet preparation is more powerful than loud confrontation every single time. That day in my backyard, the day she smiled and told me I wasn't invited, I think she expected me to fall apart. Old men are supposed to be fragile, emotional, easy to move. She didn't know that the men who've buried a wife, raised a child alone, and built something from nothing with their own hands, those men don't fall apart easily. We just get very, very quiet. And when we get quiet, we get busy. Here's the lesson I carry from all of this. You cannot stop someone from excluding you, but you can control what they find when they finally come looking. Make sure it isn't what they expected. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been excluded by family and then asked for help shortly after? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. Your words might help someone else who is sitting at their own kitchen table right now, feeling exactly what I felt. If this story moved you, please like this video. It helps more people find stories like this one. Subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new story. We post every week. Real stories, real people, real justice. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share it with them. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is simply show them they are not alone.